Let's go. The threats are queen takes queen. There are no checks in this position. The puzzle is solved using queen takes queen, rook takes queen, rook to c8, rook to d5, c3. Let's see the next puzzle. The threats are queen takes pawn, check, queen takes pawn, bishop takes bishop, bishop takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. Let us look at checks in puzzle position. Queen takes pawn, check. The answer is c5. Pawn takes pawn. Queen takes queen, check. Bishop takes queen. Bishop takes bishop, check. Let's continue. The threats are queen takes pawn, knight takes pawn, knight takes pawn. There are no checks in this position. Answer to this puzzle is queen to c2, bishop takes knight, pawn takes bishop, knight to f3, check, pawn takes knight. Let's see the next puzzle. The threats are knight takes bishop, queen takes knight, queen takes bishop, queen takes rook, queen takes queen. There are no checks in this position. The answer is queen takes queen, knight takes queen, knight takes bishop. Next puzzle, let us look at threats in puzzle position. King takes pawn, rook takes pawn. Let us look at checks in puzzle position. Rook to g2, check. Rook to d1, check. The puzzle is solved using king to g3, king to f1, rook to d1, check, king to e2, rook takes rook. Next puzzle, puzzle position vulnerabilities are queen takes pawn, check, queen takes pawn. The checks are queen to d8, check, queen to e8, check, queen to f8, check, queen to f7, check, queen takes pawn, check, queen to e6, check, bishop to d5, check. Answer to this puzzle is bishop to e4, bishop takes pawn, check, king takes bishop, queen to b6, check, king to f1. Let's continue. The threats are knight takes knight. Checks in this position are rook to h8, check. Answer to this puzzle is rook to d6, knight takes knight, rook takes rook, check. Let us go to the next puzzle. Threats in puzzle position are rook takes pawn, check, rook takes rook. The checks are rook to f8, check, rook takes pawn, check. Answer to this puzzle is rook to a1, rook to f7, rook takes rook, king takes rook, rook takes bishop. Next, threats in this position are queen takes bishop, queen takes queen, bishop takes pawn. Here are checks in puzzle position. Rook to d1, check. Solution to the puzzle is queen takes bishop. One more. Here are threats in puzzle position. Rook takes rook, queen takes pawn, queen takes pawn, check. The checks are queen to e3, check, queen takes pawn, check. The answer is rook takes rook, e6, pawn takes pawn, rook takes pawn, rook to d8. Let's see the next puzzle. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. Rook takes bishop. Let us look at checks in puzzle position. Rook to a1, check. The best move in puzzle position is rook to a1, check. King to g2, rook to a2, g6, rook takes bishop, check. Another puzzle. Here are the threats. Pawn takes knight. Here are checks in puzzle position. c5, check. The answer is pawn takes knight, king takes pawn, king to b4, king to d7, king to b5, king to c7, king to c5. Let us go to the next puzzle. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. There are no threats in this position. There are no checks in this position. Solution to the puzzle is knight to d4, rook to g8, bishop to b5, king to c8, bishop takes queen, check. Another puzzle. Threats in puzzle position are king takes queen. There are no checks in this position. The best move in puzzle position is king takes queen, rook takes pawn, rook takes pawn, a6, rook takes pawn, rook to a3, rook to b8. One more. Threats in puzzle position are queen takes rook, Queen takes pawn. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes pawn. The checks are Queen to e6, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Solution to the puzzle is Queen takes pawn, check. King to h7. Queen takes knight, check. Another one. Threats in puzzle position are Bishop takes pawn, check. Bishop takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. Knight takes pawn, check. Queen takes pawn, check. The checks are Bishop takes pawn, check. Knight to e7, check. Knight takes pawn, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Queen takes pawn, check. King to h8. Queen to g7, checkmate. Let us go to the next puzzle. The threats are Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes bishop. Queen takes rook, check. Checks in this position are Rook to h8, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen to f6, check. Queen to g7, check. Queen to h8, check. Queen takes rook, check. Answer to this puzzle is Queen to f6, check. Bishop to g6. Rook to h8, checkmate. Another one. The threats are Rook takes pawn, check. Rook takes bishop. The checks are Rook takes pawn, check. Rook to h1, check. The best move in puzzle position is Rook to a1. Rook to a3, check. Rook takes rook. Next puzzle. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. There are no threats in this position. There are no checks in this position. Answer to this puzzle is King to f2. Queen takes rook, check. Bishop takes queen, check. King to h1. Bishop takes rook. Let us go to the next puzzle. The threats are Queen takes pawn. Queen takes pawn, check. Checks in puzzle position are Queen takes pawn, check. Queen to g3, check. Queen to h2, check. Queen to f3, check. Queen to f2, check. Queen to f1, check. Queen to e4, check. Solution to the puzzle is d3. Queen to f3, check. King to c7. Queen takes queen. Pawn takes queen. Another one. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. There are no threats in this position. Let us look at checks in puzzle position. f4, check. The puzzle is solved using Rook to d1. Rook takes rook. King takes rook. Next, here are the threats. Queen takes rook, check. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes bishop, check. Here are checks in puzzle position. Queen to c8, check. Queen to d8, check. Queen takes rook, check. Queen takes bishop, check. Queen to c7, check. The best move in puzzle position is knight to b4. Bishop takes knight. Queen takes queen. Rook to e1. Rook to g1. Another puzzle. Here are the threats. Queen takes pawn. The checks are Queen to a8, check. Queen to c8, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Queen to a8, check. King to f7. Queen to f8, check. King to e6. Queen to c8, check. King takes bishop. Queen takes queen. Another one. The threats are there are no threats in this position. There are no checks in this position. The best move in puzzle position is h3. Bishop to b1. f5. b6. h2. Bishop to e4. Pawn takes bishop. Next puzzle. Here are threats in puzzle position. Knight takes knight. Knight takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn. There are no checks in this position. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Knight takes knight. Pawn takes knight. Before. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.